All right, welcome to another behind the scene video series. So today we have this. So these are my first animation that I made inside of Blender, and as you can see, there's a lot happening, right? I made all of these using noise textures, animated noise texture, and yeah, I'm pretty excited to show you what's happening behind the scene. So let's get inside of the first project, which is the sign. Of course, these are loopable as well. So I'm going to show you how I was able to make that. And we are inside of the project. So as you can see, there's not a lot happening. There's a camera and a plane. That's it, right? There's nothing else. The camera, I think, is a standard camera, right? So let's go to the camera tab. Yeah, perspective 150 millimeter. And if we zoom out, you can see how this looks like. This is a sample grid with with squares. And let's jump inside of the noise. So I just want to check if there's any modifier. No, there's only the geometry node. So we are inside of the geometry node. So I have a cube. As you can see, it's a standard cube with very low thickness. I am transforming this geometry. So for some reason, I just made it a little bit downward. So you don't really need that, because after that, as you can see, in the end, let's put this back on. It's not really centered, and that's just because I changed my axis. This is actually better. I think I fixed that in the third project, but yeah, you don't really need any transform geometry. So let's get rid of that. We are turning this mesh to volume and distributing point in volume, and I have a grid. So if you add a random type, you will get just randomized point, but I wanted to have a grid. So grid, and that's pretty much it. This is how it looks like. I have the spacing, as you can see, on the X and Y to be able to make this as as compact as possible. Of course, you can go lower. So let's go to 0.02. So yeah, we have a lot more details, but let's keep this as it was 0.4 to be able to preview it as well. After that, these points are put inside of an instance on point, and I have the group geometry, which is a simple plane. So this was the original plane that I added here. So I just used it again inside of the instance. And after that, we have our output. Next, how was I able to create the animation? So inside of the scale, we are scaling up and down our plane based on a noise texture. So I decided to go with the wave texture because you have these ring options that you can have, which is very helpful when you're trying to do this type of stuff. So let's check out the first noise pattern, and this is it, right? You get this type of rings. So rings, the ring direction is set to Z, because otherwise, if it's Y, you will only get horizontal or vertical slices. So you just get a slice, not the whole ring. But in the Z, it's actually a flat mapping on our cube here. So we have the scale, can scale up and down, and of course I added a color ramp to be able to adjust the sizing, so you can really put this as you want. And the idea behind the LED kind of screen is to not have overlapping pixel. So I'm going to keep it here, because when we try to add some more noise, these will get kind of a little bit bigger than they are now. So all right, we have this. And the nice thing about the wave is that we have a phase offset. So if I press play right now, you can see that it's offsetting the phase offset. And to be able to make it loop, I added a keyframe at 0. So to add a keyframe, you just move your cursor here to the frame you want. So in this case, it's 0. Right click and add keyframe. So already have a keyframe. And next, you go to the 90 frame. And this is the kind of the amount I found that makes it loop. I think if I add a tau, let's see, replace keyframe 6.283. Let's see if it's loop. It loops, all right. Actually, it's better to add the value tau. So yeah, let's make it faster. Tau multiply by 2 and we get 12.566. Right click, replace keyframe, and now the animation is going to be faster. So you can also make it a lot faster. Let's go to tau again, multiply by 4, we get 25 something, replace keyframe, and now it's a lot faster, right? All right, so we have our first noise, and the idea is to kind of mix two noise pattern between them. So let's check out the second wave texture. Again, we have a ring, Z, and we have a wave profile. In this file, it's simply set to scene, but I will show you in the other projects how I've been using the triangle and so on. So we have this wave. Let's see what's happening here. So what I did to achieve that is just, add a lot of scale. This was what we had on the noise up, but if you keep increasing the scale, you will get to a point where it's pretty much creating these lines going outward. So I think I was at 16 something. Yeah, something like that. And as you can see, inside of the offset, I added a negative tau. So let's add minus tau multiplied by 2. We get minus 1256. Replace keyframe. And now we have this inverted animation. So I've put my noise inside of a mix color node. I changed this to screen. I added the first wave noise in the A and the second one in the B. And when you put this here, you have this type of animation. And of course, here, as you can see, there's a lot of overlapping. So we will have to take our color here and turn that down. I think here is pretty nice. We can change here the noise, something bigger like that. And of course, we have a factor which kind of multiply this even more. So I'm going to keep this at 0.5. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So to render the animation, all you have to do is go inside of the output, set the frame rate, an output folder for the animation, and render. I usually render everything at OpenEXR so I can do my color correction. And another important step is that when you are adding this inside of Premiere, you will have one more frame. So you don't need the frame 0 because the frame 0 and 90 is the same. So you will have to, pretty much leave the frame 0 out of your animation to be able to actually make it loop properly. So yeah, let's take a look at the shader. And I'm going to press render here so we can see what's happening. I wanted to go with a pixelated LED look, but you know, it didn't really came out right. I didn't really know how to make each individual cube a separate color. It was a process that I was trying to make, but I couldn't really figure it out properly. So I thought, you know what, let's just add a gradient on each and every plane that we have, and I'm just calling it a day here. So yeah, pretty easy texturing inside of the emission. I have a color ramp with a grid set to linear and 3 colors with a constant interpolation. A little bit of strength, not too much, you know, just a little bit. And I think I also added in the composition. No, I didn't add anything in the compositor. So the, as you can see here, the post process, I added some glow. I also added a depth of field, so you know, just to make it a little bit more interesting, a lot of depth of field here. And yeah, that's pretty much how I was able to make that. So let's jump inside of the second one, the target. As you can see here, there's a lot more stuff happening. We have the same starting setup, cube, transform geometry that we don't really need, mesh to volume, distribute point to volume, and instance on point with the plane as an instance, and then we have our noise mix. So let's take a look at each noise. So the first one is again a ring one, scene, wave profile, low scale, and the phase, a positive phase, so it's going inward. The second noise, I have a saw wave profile. So this is what the saw looks like. And actually, I can show you the difference. This is the scene. It's smooth all around the wave. The saw is rough on one edge. And the triangle, it's a combination of those two. The saw one looks really nice though. So this is the second. As you can see, it's a negative phase, and I added these two together. So let's see how these two look. So we have our wave inward, our wave outward. All right, let's move on to the third wave. We have this rings, spherical this time, triangle. For some reason, the triangle makes a smooth animation. I think the scene as well, but I like the triangle a lot better, you know. It retained kind of the outline that I was looking for. So this one is going at a tau speed, so normal speed. And I decided to mix this mix and with this noise, and again a screen blending mode, and you can see what this looks like with those three noise so far. Let's take a look at the last noise. So this is again ring, spherical, and saw. Fairly slow scale, and I had to kind of clamp the texture here so we can have this nice thin ring growing. I added the second mix inside of the A color and the last noise inside of the B. Blending mode to subtract, and when we put everything together, we get this nice thing. So I changed the factor as well. By default it's 0.5, but I wanted a little bit more here on the ring going outward. And the texture is exactly the same as well as my camera. You know, I didn't change that. So let's close this up and open up the third one, which is the radar. So as you can see, there's a lot of noise. I added a couple more wave patterns here to be able to blend even more stuff together. I wanted to mix the noise texture in the vector or the wave texture. So let's see how that looks like. So yeah, this is another way to add further details inside of your wave texture pattern. So let's take a look at the animation for this noise. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with the distortion. So let's put this to 0. This is nice. And multifractal. So yeah, you can have a lot of stuff happening. We have our second noise again. Ring set to saw. I added a mix color channel. As you can see, this is how it looks like. And yeah, you pretty much get the idea, right? I try to take each and every noise, try to make something interesting, and then I just add them together. So here, for example, for this noise, I have an animated wave texture going very slowly. And inside of the vector, I added another wave texture set to diagonal and triangle. Even so looks good. Ah, this is nice one. Yes. And when you add all of this together, yeah, there's a lot of things happening, you know. Very easy to add. And for the last noise, I wanted to add some kind of refresh buffer here. You can see the line going upward. And this is thanks to a band set to the Y direction. And that's pretty much it for these animation. Another important tip that I totally forgot to mention is let's go to the graph editor. So something you will have to do is to fix the interpolation line. So as you can see here, my two keyframe are set to linear interpolation. So have that in mind. It's very important to be able to make it loop properly. So don't forget to select each element you've added keyframe to, go to your graph editor and just change your line, your keyframe interpolation to linear if you want a more organic and continuous loopable animation. All right, so that's it for this 3-day series. Yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.